Emily had always looked up at the stars with a sense of wonder. Every night she would lie on the grass in her backyard, staring at the glittering sky, imagining what it would be like to travel among the stars. For as long as she could remember, her dream was simple yet grand: to go to space. One day, Emily received an invitation. It was from the Space Exploration Program, a special selection for young astronauts. Her heart raced as she read the letter. It was the opportunity she had been waiting for her whole life. She had always dreamed of flying in a spaceship, discovering new planets, and experiencing the mysteries of space. Now it could be real. "Emily, you have to go. This is your chance," her best friend Lily said excitedly when Emily told her the news. Lily was different. While Emily was fascinated by the idea of space exploration, Lily saw space as something mysterious and powerful. She respected the stars, but was a little scared of what might lie beyond them. Still, she loved Emily and supported her dream with all her heart. "I'm nervous but excited," Emily said, her eyes shining with excitement. "I've always wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself." Lily smiled and gave Emily a thumbs up. "You've got this. I believe in you." The day of the astronaut selection arrived. Emily and Lily stood in a large hall filled with other young people who had the same dream. Some were smiling with confidence, while others looked nervous like Emily. It was a big moment for all of them, but Emily could only think about one thing: the stars. When they were called to the stage, Emily felt her heart thumping in her chest. She looked around at the other candidates. Each person had a story, a reason for wanting to go to space, just like her. Some dreamed of discovering new life. Others wanted to study the stars. And some simply wanted to experience the beauty of the universe. The program leaders smiled as they introduced the selection process. "This is not just about bravery," one of them said. "It's about passion, curiosity, and the will to explore the unknown." Emily took a deep breath. This was it. She had waited for this moment her entire life, and now she had to prove that she belonged here. "Are you ready?" Lily whispered, squeezing her hand. Emily smiled and nodded. "I'm ready." And with that, the journey began. After weeks of waiting, the moment Emily and Lily had dreamed of finally came true. They were officially part of the Space Exploration Program. Both of them felt a mix of excitement and nerves. The real work had only just begun. Their first day at the training camp was overwhelming. They stood in a huge room with giant screens and advanced equipment. There were astronauts everywhere, some already experienced, others like Emily and Lily, fresh-faced and eager to learn. "Welcome to the astronaut training camp," a tall instructor with a friendly smile said. "This will be the hardest challenge of your lives. But if you can make it through, you'll be ready for space." Emily and Lily exchanged nervous looks, but they were determined. They were here to learn, and they wouldn't back down. The first lesson was about operating a spaceship. Emily's heart raced as she sat at the controls of a mock spaceship, staring at the buttons and screens in front of her. The instructor explained how each button controlled a different system, from navigation to life support. One wrong move and things could go wrong, he warned. Emily took a deep breath and carefully followed the instructions. It wasn't easy, but with each practice, she grew more confident. Lily was beside her, focusing intently. Unlike Emily, who felt at home with the machines, Lily found it more difficult. She was more comfortable with the idea of space itself, but the technical side was challenging. Still, she didn't give up. Every time she made a mistake, she laughed and tried again. The days grew busier with endless hours of training. There were lessons on space survival, emergency procedures, and how to handle problems when they happened in the middle of space. Emily learned how to perform spacewalks, float in zero gravity, and fix broken equipment. The instructors tested them, pushing them to their limits. It was hard work, but Emily loved every minute of it. Each lesson brought her closer to her dream. One afternoon, Emily and Lily were assigned a teamwork challenge. They had to work together to fix a broken satellite while floating in a zero-gravity chamber. The task was tricky. Emily was focused on the tools, while Lily floated by, trying to make sure the satellite didn't drift away. It took longer than expected, and they both struggled, but they finally managed to finish the job. Lily grinned, her face flushed with excitement. "We did it," she said. Emily nodded, feeling a sense of pride. It wasn't easy, but it felt amazing to work together. As the weeks passed, Emily and Lily grew closer to their fellow astronauts. There was Marco, a quiet but brilliant scientist, Zoe, a bubbly and strong engineer, and Ava, who had always dreamed of flying. Everyone had a different story, but they shared the same goal: to go to space. Together they laughed, struggled, and grew stronger. They knew that space wasn't just about the adventure. It was about the responsibility of exploring the unknown. Every challenge they faced made them more prepared for the journey ahead. Emily felt that the dream was no longer just hers. It was theirs, and together they would reach the stars. The day had finally arrived. The day Emily and Lily had dreamed about for so long. They were standing inside the spacecraft, ready for the most incredible adventure of their lives. Their hearts beat with excitement and wonder as they looked out through the window, watching the Earth below them shrink into a small blue dot. "We're really doing this, Emily," Lily whispered, her voice filled with awe. She was still in shock that they were leaving Earth behind and heading into the unknown. "I know," Emily said, her eyes shining. "This is it, Lily. We're going to space." With a deep rumble, the engines of the spacecraft came to life. The countdown began, and as the clock hit 0, the spacecraft slowly lifted off the ground. Emily felt a rush of energy as the ship soared higher and higher, breaking free from Earth's gravity. The world outside the window became smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. The moment the spacecraft left the atmosphere, everything changed. The hum of the engine softened, and the silence of space filled the cabin. Emily gazed out of the window in awe. The sky was no longer just a shade of blue. It was endless black, dotted with millions of twinkling stars. "Look at that," Lily breathed. "I've never seen anything like it. It's beautiful." The stars were unlike anything they had ever imagined. They were so close, so bright, it almost felt like they could reach out and touch them. The darkness of space was deep and mysterious, yet it was calming, as though it stretched out forever, welcoming them to explore. The crew worked together, conducting experiments and making observations. Emily and Lily joined in, testing how different materials behaved in zero gravity, learning about the effects of space on the human body, and observing the stars through powerful telescopes. They even took turns floating outside the spacecraft to collect data, their bodies weightless as they moved like dancers in the silence of space. One day, as Emily was floating near a window, she caught sight of something extraordinary. A vast cloud of gas and dust, glowing in brilliant shades of purple and pink, stretched across the dark sky. "Lily, come see this," she called excitedly. Lily rushed over, her eyes widening in wonder. "What is it?" "I think it's a nebula," Emily said, her voice filled with awe. "It's a place where stars are born." The two friends stared at the nebula in silence, feeling a deep sense of wonder. In that moment, they realized how small they were compared to the universe. Yet, at the same time, they felt incredibly special to be there, to witness something so magnificent. It was a reminder that, while humanity was just a small part of the vast universe, it was also capable of doing something amazing, reaching beyond its limits, exploring the unknown, and discovering the wonders of space. The further they traveled, the more Emily and Lily understood. The stars above were no longer distant dots. They were part of a much bigger story, a story that had been unfolding for billions of years. The universe was filled with mysteries, and as human beings, they had the privilege and responsibility to explore them. As Emily floated by a window, she thought to herself, "This is what I've always dreamed of. This is why I wanted to go to space, to see the universe in all its beauty and mystery. And now that I'm here, I know there's so much more to discover." The journey through space had been smooth so far, but as the spacecraft neared the space station, something unexpected happened. A warning light flashed on the control panel, and a soft beep filled the cabin. "Oh, that doesn't look good," Emily said, frowning as she glanced at the screen. "What's going on?" Lily asked, her voice tense. She had been floating near the window, watching the stars, but now she quickly floated over to the control panel. Emily quickly checked the spacecraft systems. "It looks like there's a minor malfunction with the oxygen supply system. It's not dangerous, but if we don't fix it, we could lose air pressure in the cabin." Lily's heart skipped a beat. They had trained for situations like this, but the real thing was always different. "What do we need to do?" "We need to access the maintenance panel," Emily said, pointing to a small hatch on the side of the spacecraft. "We'll need to check the oxygen filters and make sure they're functioning properly. If one of them is blocked or broken, that could be the cause." Lily nodded, and the two of them worked quickly. They floated over to the hatch, securing their equipment with magnetic straps to keep them in place. Emily pried open the panel, revealing a maze of wires and pipes. She looked at the oxygen filter and immediately saw the problem. A small piece of debris had clogged the system, preventing it from working properly. "This is it," Emily said, pointing to the debris. "I'll remove it. You help me secure the filter afterward." Lily nodded and took a deep breath. She knew the clock was ticking and every second counted. They worked together, both of them floating in the zero-gravity chamber, carefully removing the debris and replacing the filter. It wasn't easy. Every time they touched a part, it floated away, and they had to chase it before it drifted too far. But Emily's calm instructions and Lily's quick thinking made them a perfect team. After what felt like an eternity, Emily closed the panel with a relieved sigh. "We did it." Lily floated back and smiled, her heart still racing. "That was intense, but we did it." Just as they were about to relax, another surprise appeared. This time something much more exciting. A strange glowing object appeared on the spacecraft's sensors, far off in the distance. It wasn't like anything they had seen before. "Emily, look at this," Lily said, pointing to the screen. "There's something out there. It's moving." The object was a cloud of gas and dust, glowing with an eerie greenish light. It seemed to pulse gently, as if it had a life of its own. Emily's eyes widened in wonder. "I've never seen anything like this," she said softly. "It's like a new star is being born right in front of us." The two of them quickly alerted the rest of the crew. Marco, Zoe, and Ava gathered around, all equally amazed by the sight. They pointed the spacecraft's telescopes toward the object and began collecting data. "This could be a new nebula," Marco said, his voice filled with excitement. "It's possible that no one has ever seen it before. If we're right, this could be a major discovery for space science." For hours, the crew worked to gather information about the mysterious object. They took images, analyzed the light patterns, and measured the radiation. Emily and Lily could hardly believe what was happening. In the middle of their mission, they had stumbled upon something completely unknown, a discovery that could change how people understood the universe. As the crew finished their research, Emily and Lily shared a quiet moment at the window, looking at the glowing nebula. It was a humbling sight, one that made them feel small in the grand scheme of the universe. But it also made them realize how incredible it was to be part of something so much bigger than themselves. "This is what space exploration is all about," Emily said, her voice filled with awe. "It's not just about reaching new places, it's about discovering the unknown and sharing it with everyone." Lily nodded, her heart full of pride. "We've made a real contribution to science, and we didn't even expect it." As they drifted in the silence of space, the new nebula shining brightly outside, Emily and Lily knew that this was only the beginning. They were no longer just explorers. They were part of a team that had made a discovery that would inspire future generations. They had ventured into the unknown, and in doing so, they had helped to unlock the mysteries of the universe. After days of floating among the stars, collecting data, and making history with their discovery, it was finally time for Emily and Lily to return to Earth. Their mission was complete, but the journey had changed them forever. They had ventured into the unknown, seen things no one had ever seen, and made a contribution to the understanding of the universe. As the spacecraft began its descent toward Earth, Emily felt a mixture of emotions. She was excited to return home, but part of her felt sad to leave the stars behind. The peaceful, infinite blackness of space had become a part of her. She would miss it. "We're going back, Lily," Emily said softly, looking at her friend. "I know," Lily replied, her eyes filled with wonder. "But we've seen things that most people can only dream of. We've made history." The spacecraft entered Earth's atmosphere with a sudden jolt, and the cabin filled with the sound of air rushing past. The heat shield glowed as they descended, but Emily and Lily knew they were almost home. The excitement in their hearts grew as the blue sky of Earth came into view. After what felt like an eternity, the spacecraft landed safely on Earth. The moment the doors opened, a wave of fresh, cool air filled the cabin, and the two friends stepped out into the sunlight. They were greeted by the cheering crowd of scientists, astronauts, and their families. Emily and Lily had done it. They had completed their mission, and their discovery would go down in history. "You did it," Marco, one of the other astronauts, said, giving them both a big hug. "You two are heroes." Emily smiled, but she knew they weren't the only ones who had made this possible. The whole crew had worked together, and together they had achieved something incredible. Back on Earth, Emily and Lily's story quickly spread. They became symbols of space exploration, inspiring countless young people to dream big and reach for the stars. News outlets shared their story, and schools began teaching students about the brave young women who had traveled to space and made a groundbreaking discovery. A few weeks later, Emily stood on top of a mountain, looking up at the night sky. The stars were brighter than ever, and she could almost feel their pull, calling her back. Her heart was filled with awe and gratitude for everything she had experienced, but she also knew that this was just the beginning. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the cool wind on her face. The universe is so vast, so full of possibilities, she thought. I want to keep exploring it. There's so much more to see, so much more to learn. I'll never stop dreaming, Emily whispered to herself. With that, she made a promise. No matter where life took her, she would continue to chase the stars, to seek out new horizons, and to push the limits of what humanity could achieve. The universe was her canvas, and she was just beginning to paint her story. And with Lily by her side, Emily knew that their dreams were just beginning. Together, they would continue to explore, to discover, and to inspire others to reach for the stars.